she's seen by...
And melody of our rich culture, the Gales.
Here in Grenada, while considerable progress has been made with women's participation in Parliament and in senior management in the public sector, issues such as violence against women, declining access to quality healthcare services, and the lack of decent employment opportunities are at the forefront of the challenges we face as women today, just as we have had for many, many years. We cannot continue on this course. Our women are the backbone of our society, and therefore for our nation to prosper, we need change. That's why I congratulate the Greanada Movement, TGM, on the occasion of its launch. And I'm happy to give my endorsement to TGM as an agent for change in the way we as a nation treat with the issues that affect all our women folk.
Our next performer is a young entertainer who is recognized as one of the most versatile performing artists in the history of Grenada. Tonight, PGM is happy to have him perform the hit single Rise, accompanied by Cavell Isaac on the keyboard. Ladies and gentlemen, Jefferson Ramirez.
Down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can't find that fighter that I see in you so we can walk it out. Move mountains. We can walk it out and move mountains. And our eyes like the day, our eyes unafraid, our eyes up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. Oh yes, our eyes up, high like the waves, our eyes up, in spite of the ache, our eyes up, I'm gonna do it 1,000 times again. Just for you, for you, for you. When the silence isn't quiet and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe, and I know you feel like dying, but I promise you will bring the world to its feet and move mountains, bring it to its feet and move mountains. And our eyes like the day, our eyes up, in spite of the ache, our eyes up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. Oh yes, our eyes up, high like the waves, our eyes up, and our eyes unafraid, our eyes up, and I'm gonna do it 1,000 times again. Just for you, for you, yeah. Oh, see, all we need is hope, and for that we have each other. Yes, we do. Oh, for that we have each other. See, we will rise, we will rise, we will rise, yeah. Oh yes, our eyes like the day, our eyes unafraid, our eyes up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. Oh yes, our eyes up, high like the waves, our eyes up, in spite of the ache, our eyes up, and I'm gonna do it 1,000 times again. Just for you, 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 just for you, only for you, yeah, for you, 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 only for you.
Hi, I'm Janice. And for years, it felt like we have been standing alone in the fight for what is right, just, and fair. We stood out on a limb, and sometimes it got lonely out there because we chose to stand up and speak out on behalf of our brothers and sisters and the children of the nation. When we marched for tougher laws against child sexual molestation, we were ignored. When we rallied for a sex offenders registry, the lawmakers did not budge. When we questioned matters of national interest, we're told, don't concern yourself with it. And when we questioned some of the decisions, alliances, and partnerships forged on behalf of we the people of Grenada, we're laughed at and told, don't bite the hands that feed you. Our investor patterns and CBI programs were supposed to be a way out of poverty or beacon of hope. But with a constant spotlight on wrongdoing and unscrupulous characters associated with these programs, a lot is left to be desired. Grenadians have been given a raw deal. And while many would like to stand up and speak up for change, the environment of fear and vindictiveness is not conducive. So while I brag that I'm a naval Stringberrians and Davids, I realize that a grouping of like-minded people can get our message louder and further. So today I stand up for you. Today I stand with TGM, the Grenada movement. TGM will stand with you. TGM will stand by you. TGM will speak on behalf of the voiceless. TGM will advocate on your behalf. I stand with TGM. So should you.
You're watching the official launch of the Grenada movement, TGM. And now it's time to hear from our chairman. To the majority of us, he is no stranger. But for our viewers around the world, here's a snapshot of our next speaker. He is a leading Caribbean economist and consultant to CARICOM and several international organizations. As well as being an accomplished scholar, he is renowned for his commitment to the development and advancement of Grenada and Grenadians at home and abroad, as an outspoken proponent of strategic planning and thinking to resolve issues and build structures, institutions, and solutions. A philanthropist at heart, he believes that in all things, one must give thanks to and be guided by Almighty God. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Patrick Alphonsus Antoine.
Fellow Grenadians at home and in the diaspora, a pleasant evening to you all. On behalf of the committed brothers and sisters of the Grenada movement, colleague members all, it gives me great pleasure to be addressing you on the occasion of the inauguration of this institution. TGM will henceforth repose the dreams and aspirations of generations of Grenadians for a united, independent, productive, innovative, and caring society. Today, as we introduce TGM to you, our fellow Grenadians, we do so at a time of unprecedented uncertainty in our country, others in the region, and indeed globally, in terms of people's livelihoods, the potential for economic collapse, radical changes in the way in which we work, play, live, and yes, even in the way we die, as the deaths from COVID has just exceeded 1 million people worldwide. TGM is a registered NGO. We intend to deal with critical issues attendant to the current development dilemma in Grenada. My countrymen, our parliamentary system of government is rooted in an informed, cultivated, and alert public opinion. Alternative voices via opposition parties, non-governmental organizations, and civil society, therefore, are indispensable to the efficient functioning of democracy. Indeed, I'm sure you will agree, and it will be argued, that the strength of our democracy depends on the strength of our citizenry. TGM believes that the most important responsibility falling to us as Grenadians is the protection and promotion of our democracy. We also believe that democracy means more than the exercise of voting rights every 5 years or so. It also means the recognition of the rights of others, not just of the majority, mind you, but also of those in minority. We must ensure, therefore, that we protect the weak against the strong. Democracy means accountability by the government to the citizens, and the protection of citizens from the arbitrary exercise of power and the violation of their individual rights and freedoms. Democracy means freedom of expression, the freedom to assemble and to engage in lawful activity in organizations such as ours, the TGM. Democracy also means that our increasingly polarized society must find a place for institutions such as TGM, for us to offer an alternative view, and where and as necessary, at times, yes, even to point to a third way. In this period of existential threat to our human civilization, it is simply the wrong time for us to engage in business as usual. COVID-19 has blunted the effectiveness of traditional ways of development and the approaches and results associated with them. It is now more evident than before COVID that we must address long-standing weaknesses in our economic and social systems. For instance, according to a recent IDB study, Greanada ranks as the 11th most tourism-dependent country out of 166 countries examined. Our over-reliance on imports of food and other basic items, and the stubborn level of poverty and inequities placed our society in an extremely vulnerable position. It is evident that we must now address the development of our people and the economy in a balanced, fact-based, and objective manner. Critical evaluation would indicate that the answers to the current situation do not lie simply in increased investment in tourism plant, arguably more of the same, but more so on how we bring about the transformation of the economy and the society as a whole. There can be no denial of the fact that we are well past the time for action. As a Grenadian civilization, therefore, there are urgent decisions for us to make in order to address the food and nutrition security challenges of our people. Those in education, the challenges in health, and the provision of expanded dignified work and career choices for our youth. We at TGM, through a healthy exchange of views and perspectives over the last several months, have come to a settled view that unless we are able to marshal our collective resources as a Grenadian people, for once playing with our entire team, that we will not be able to seriously address the ever-increasing levels of vulnerability in our society. Moreover, there will be negative consequences for all of us if we fail at this task. But the heaviest burden will be on the poorest and most vulnerable amongst us, now and for entire generations to come. Already too many of our people are living in arrears, on the narrow fringes of the breadline, such that any unexpected event, a health challenge of a family member, quite frequent in these stressful times, a fender bender, or even a basic household maintenance problem is cause for anxiety and panic, as it threatens to plunge the entire family into more unmanageable debt. Notwithstanding, the vast majority of our people continue to serve our homeland well. With the onslaught of COVID-19, we saw and witnessed firsthand the hard-working and unstinting sacrifice that our dedicated servants, the teachers, the police, our farmers, the healthcare workers, the sanitation workers, and others, the sacrifice that they made to continue to maintain the fragile balance of the threads of our economy and society. All of them, out of a sincere sense of patriotism, they all continue to make heavy down payments of social capital to our society. Yet still, they continue to engage in the daily battle to make ends meet. Many fear that their wages and salaries will be cut. Many are anxious too that each paycheck will be the last. Our people are fearful about the future. Surely we owe them a debt of gratitude, a living wage, and an opportunity to enjoy a dignified and decent life. We cannot ask our people to continue to toil in the field of sacrifice for much longer without the certain sight of sunset to their difficult circumstances. We must at the very least offer the hope that they will be able to gaze at the sunrise of opportunity. And yes, at the chance of a decent life free from fear and poverty-induced anxiety. We can and must do better by our people. In a country that continues to be pregnant with opportunity, but with which there is always an uncertain delivery date. Indeed, no country can thrive on the perpetual promise of potential without ever actually delivering for its people the very fundamental right of a decent life. Hence the political slogan, some time ago, that we will deliver, is apt, and still relevant. Another political slogan portends to put people first, a construct of tremendous value. Obviously then, the problem is not the coining and celebration of campaign slogans, nor with their stated intent, but we must address the scourge of grinding poverty and raise incomes to overcome the phenomena of the working poor and the growing income inequality in our country. We must focus on generating wealth from internal sources and by Grenadians in the diaspora, not only through the facilitation of foreign direct investment. Yet for all this, there is a place for foreign direct investment as a means of financing and as a means of transferring technology, skills, and know-how. We must empower people so that they can play their role as citizens in the manner dreamed of by our predecessors, who, in the crucible of struggles over our short history as a civilization, envisioned a society of Grenadians, independent, educated, and strong, but imbued with the same values as they, rooted in the omniscience of our God. We must set aside and ultimately extinguish the growing trend of tribal politics, which at any one time has part of our country engaged and the other part disengaged or uninterested, with the consequence that we have not played at full strength for decades. It is a sobering reality that small as we are, poor as we have made ourselves, we continue to play the game with 6 and 7 men, while others that are larger and wealthier than us play with a full team of 11 men. Still, somehow, we have grown the expectation that the world owes us the same standard of living and the same benefits as is enjoyed by others who are playing with their full team. To quote one of my early mentors and a highly celebrated economic historian, George Ignatius Brazan, Grenada is a rich country made poor by bad choices. There is no question that we have and continue to make bad choices and decisions, due in part to the fact that we've never played with a full team. But we've also underperformed because we've quite often not fielded the best team. The problem of choice has been debilitating in instances, for instance, with the decisions taken regarding the oil and gas resources, which seem to have all but disappeared from the public discourse, and which for the foreseeable future appears to have been relegated to a distant second or third by co-development partners. There can be no denying that petrocarbon development has been largely misunderstood by successive governments, and indeed, this explains in large measure the absence from the 2020 to 2035 National Development Plan of any serious treatment of petrocarbon resources and petrocarbon development. The problem of choice, of course, also explains the way in which our agricultural sector manifests systematic declines over the last 2 decades. COVID-19 has simply highlighted the anti-agricultural biases in our domestic policies, and it has also revealed the high societal cost of failing to harness technological innovation in feeding our people and for export growth and development. Indeed, my countrymen, it will soon be evident that we face a further dilemma in agriculture, where by 2030, based on current trends, we will have approximately 1/3 the number of farmers engaged in the sector as we did in 2015. The reality is that successive generations have been educated to exit the land. Retraining young entrepreneurs in agriculture is therefore the quintessential counter-tendency. It will require that we draw on different approaches, including the adoption and adaptation of technology, premised on exports, yes, increasingly on supplying global markets. It is apparent that, in part, we are facing what we may term a failure of imagination regarding actionable solutions to drive the economy on a sustainable path. Other countries, when confronted with similar emergent challenges, and in the wake of COVID-19, are reimagining and refashioning their development model. Our country has no real option but to do the same. We say no real option, for indeed the well-rehearsed option of doing more of the same is always a possibility. This time instead, this time we must seize the opportunity for reimagination and refashioning of the economy and society, and do as my friend Mr. Killer implored us: pick it up and run with it. Running with it means that we must urgently seek to initiate a rebuilding of the economy, making it more resilient in the face of possible pandemic shocks, and to provide better safeguards against poverty and social marginalization. Running with it means that we must identify new sources of government revenue, new areas of innovative activity, and new areas of sustainable economic growth. It also means that we need to do a lot more than attract investment in the same sectors, doing the same things, if we are to get the economy back on track, if we want to make the economy more resilient. The legacy of COVID-19 for our country must be a new economy and a new society. To achieve this new economy and new society, we must all commit to recovery with transformation. TGM is grounded in the understanding that economics and the policy framework that underpins it must first and foremost be about improving the lives of our people. We are convinced that national development at this time of COVID requires the participation of all our people and of the entire country. What we call a whole of society approach, a whole of society response, and not merely a government response. This is why people participation is a core principle for the TGM. In a country as small and fragile as Grenada, and with the monumental challenges to development, we cannot afford to leave anyone behind. Indeed, our country's motto, which aptly captures the high ideals and principles on which our nation state is founded, puts it best when it entrenches in the psyche of patriots. Ever conscious of God, we aspire, build, and advance as one people. TGM believes that the reimagination and transformation of our economy and society is something that we must do together. So even as we move to get the country onto a sustainable development path, we will need to ensure that the social context within which these changes must take place is characterized by social cohesion and by an enduring commitment to social equity and inclusion. We as TGM understand that cohesion and social equity will be pillars of the new society. These are essential if we are to avoid social tensions and build trust and unity among all our people. Reimagining and transformation of our society, not just the economy, will mean that our policies and our institutions must eliminate the systemic factors that act as barriers to progress for some groups based on differences in political parties, social stature, or even religious beliefs. We must rapidly re-engineer our policy frameworks and our institutions to give every Grenadian citizen or resident the certainty that they too stand a good chance, and more so that they stand an equal chance of making a better lives for themselves and their families. Social equity demands that we reimagine the policy framework to entrench technology and training, such that our people, especially our youth from every segment of the society, will be motivated to get into lines of economic activity, particularly those which constitute key elements of the new economy sectors of development. But this is but the first mile. Indeed, the last mile is how we bring about our collective resources to make it happen. For much of this would come to naught if we ignore the scriptural advice of the great apostle James, where in James 1:22, he reminds us, but be doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. Indeed, sober reflection burdens us all to admit that in some small measure, that we too must carry a small part of the collective responsibility for not making the strides we should have in enabling new economic activity over the past several decades. Indeed, an assessment of savings, investment, and the human resource availability of our people at home and abroad can only yield the sanguineous conclusion that we could have done, but certainly that we must do far more if we are to herald the new economy and the new society. TGM is committed to working together with our people to unlock these opportunities of enabling our people to become doers, not just hearers or talkers. The new economy and the new society, which now forms the development aspirations of so many countries, such as Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana at this time, will not emerge on its own. Only grace has the unique feature to do that. This new economy and new society will take work. It will take doing. It will take sacrifice, and yes, that S word, it will take struggle. But it will also mean taking hold of opportunity and running with it. The doing brings us into sharp focus with the role of key stakeholders, such as governments, the private sector, and civil society. Our country's record for the implementation of public-funded projects of less than 50%, for instance, also highlights the importance of the doing. This means that for every dollar of donor-funded public investment projects, less than 50 cents are actually spent. Even as our country laments the poor performance of the economy, the need for increasing employment and economic activity. In addition, Grenada has commitments and undisbursed funds of around 500 million EC dollars. Where these funds are not spent, they cannot be drawn down or must be returned. There is an unenviable record of lost opportunities from this problem of implementation, from the problem of doing. These lost opportunities must be avoided as our country engages the relentless pursuit of the new economy and the new society, as they deny our people the benefit of economic activity, employment, and a decent standard of living. There can be no doubt that these lost opportunities bring into sharp focus the need for a sober and mature discussion around leadership and accountability. But it also opens the discussion about leadership at all levels of government, of the private sector, of civil society, even the church and other key institutions. TGM offers an avenue for the frank and objective discussion of these issues, and also for the forming of a consensus on the way forward. To be followed, of course, by a strategy for addressing issues such as the implementation deficit, which has bedeviled virtually all our governments in the post-1983 period. In transitioning to the new society and the new economy, we would fall victim. Go back. In transitioning to the new society and the new economy, we would fall victim to the same errors of omission as others, should we fail to recognize the importance of social capital. TGM believes that an urgent task facing our country is to rebuild and further develop our social capital. While there are rules for all stakeholders in rebuilding social capital, though, this is a task that falls to the entire society. TGM offers a platform to forge a new consensus around these and other key issues. Fellow Grenadians, we have yet another opportunity to join other countries that have been using the COVID pandemic to leapfrog the learning curve into sectors and areas such as green growth, embracing technology-intensive agriculture, actualizing the blue economy, actually benefiting with economic activity and projects from the blue economy, taking hold of opportunities in the maritime sector, advancing opportunities in ICT, including the establishment of the environment for technology-based industries and digitization of our processes, as well as in supporting the development and export potential of our creative and cultural industries. Of course, the creative and cultural industries, even at this time, are benefiting from innovation in ICT. And these innovations and that thrust seem set to continue even after the COVID pandemic. TGM does not profess to have all the answers. Indeed, none of us is expected to. This is why we believe that genuine consultations within a structured institutional framework that encourages a diversity of views and perspectives remains among the best approaches to arriving at solutions best suited to our country's development. Commitment to genuine consultations, though, will sometimes mean that all of us and our authorities will hear things that aren't flattering. But these are precisely the things that we must listen to. For instance, it ought not to have taken us all these years to hear the cries of the youth that the Imani program wasn't working for them and it needed to be reimagined. They spoke loudly, but manifestly to little effect. We simply cannot afford to pursue politics as usual. Even now, as our nation confronts uncertain times, TGM has commenced listening sessions. We want to hear the views and perspectives of our countrymen and women and youth and the elderly, the abled and the differently abled. We intend to exercise the role expected of citizens in a democratic society. Clearly, with only 100,000 of us resident in Grenada, but admittedly, with hundreds of thousands more outside our country, everyone has a role to play. And everyone must be allowed to play their part. We, our civilization, our people, have faced many crises before. Indeed, as a fledgling civilization of transplanted people, mostly of African descent, we have transcended all of these challenges and adversities. We have so much to contribute to the world as a people, as a country, and so much to adapt and adopt from the world and press into the development service of our country. We are not a mendicant people, and we must resist all attempts to take the easy road. We therefore call on all Grenadians, the 100,000 or so of us at home, and the hundreds of thousands of Grenadians abroad, all of us, all Grenadians, we call on you to help our country and our region by assisting in whatever way that you can, and to join this movement. This movement, which is a movement that aims at the reimagination and the transformation of our society and our economy. Join the movement with ideas mostly, with your attention and your commitment to helping us to build this country, all of us. TGM. TGM commits to being the vehicle through which all citizens of the state of Grenada can realize their potential to prosperity, security, to equity, to sustainability, and yes, to democracy in an ever-changing global environment. Should you remember anything of this evening's remarks, remember this: recovery and transformation requires us all. Thank you, and a pleasant good evening to all of you.
Get high making money moves with the NLA's new Aces High Scratch game with 4 chances to win. Beat the dealer's card to win the prize shown. Reveal an A symbol. And just like that, you are automatically a winner. Scratch away to win the top prize of $10,000. Win easy with Scratch. Must be 18 or older to play.
Good evening, viewers and listeners. Welcome to the National Lotteries Authority's Daily Pick 3 Evening Draw for today, Wednesday, October 7th,